Kia ora. This year in 2024, I had the amazing pleasure of seeing The Phantom Menace in cinemas for the first time ever. Episode 1 Phantom Menace is a very important movie to me because regardless of what anyone thinks of it, if it weren't for that movie releasing, I don't think I would be as into Star Wars as I am. So in other words, this beauty here is to blame for my obsession. In celebration of this year's anniversary, I wanted to take a look at the Phantom Menace release LEGO sets and make the definitive list on what I believe to be the best Phantom Menace based sets. That's right, it's another ranking video. The rules, nice and simple. I am only going to be looking at sets that are based on the Phantom Menace, released from the years of 1999 to today. And that includes the 2024 releases, by the way, because why not? It's fun. To make things a bit easier on myself, I am using Brickset's tag of Phantom Menace and counting anything that they consider to be a LEGO set. But there are a few exceptions to be made here. The UCS R2-D2 from 2012, it is tagged with multiple movies, and it feels a little bit more like it's kind of linked to the Tantive on the box there. It doesn't necessarily feel like a Phantom Menace set to me, really. On that subject though, the other UCS R2-D2 and the recently released Brick Built fella as well. Again, at the time of these being released, R2-D2 is representative of an entire series of the movies. They never really released in a wave that was tied towards the Phantom Menace, if that makes sense. But spoilers, I will be looking at the Technic one because it released alongside other Phantom Menace Technic characters. All advent calendars, there's a bunch of stuff from the original trilogy in these things, some are from the sequel trilogy, some of them do have really strong arguments to be made for being counted, like the one that's got the Christmas Darth Maul, but again, it doesn't feel like it's exclusively episode 1, and this video is already incredibly lengthy as it is. I'm also always going to be excluding things like polybags and keychains, pens, watches, these mini building set things or whatever, and anything else that kind of falls into that weird niche category, mostly because they would obviously all be placed at the bottom of this list, and I just don't see the excitement in doing that. So now that I've covered all of those rules, we can take a look at what my definitive ranking list is of LEGO Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Let's get into it. Number 51, R2-D2 2002. I mean, what were they thinking? One could argue that had we not seen this experimental release, then maybe we wouldn't have received the really solid UCS sets, and we do have those and we do really love those, but this thing is just scary to look at. I managed to get one in a bundle alongside the other Technic-based figures, which I do really like, a few years back. Really rare finds, especially here in this country. I really don't know what's funnier, the empty shell of the body or the insane design for that dome piece. Number 50, Droid Pack 2000. One of the few times that LEGO produced figures just on their own, this neat little droid pack featured a commander droid and 2 regular droids, and that was the set. It was pretty well priced, one assumes, but at least the figures in here were readily available in other sets, especially looking back in retrospect. By no means a bad set, it's just not one that really interests me personally in the year of 2024. Number 49, Darth Maul figure 2018. I really do not care for this generation of buildable figures from LEGO personally. I do think that I probably would have liked this as a kid, and some of these are cool looking like the General Grievous one, but this, again, it just does not interest me in any way whatsoever, so putting him here at 49. Number 48, Sith Infiltrator Microfighter 2019. I do think it's really cool that we got 2 microfighters based on the Phantom Menace in the same year, but meh, I'm not really into the microfighters. I do appreciate the fact that it is always a cheaper way of acquiring a really cool minifigure. Darth Maul was released in the Duel on Naboo set, which I already had in my collection, so there was no need for me to go out and get this one. Number 47, AAT Microfighter 2014. This one's higher up than Maul's just because I can see a benefit to buying multiples of these just for that droid figure. If this was a regular droid, maybe not so much, but a slightly less common pilot figure is a pretty cool figure to get in a set like this. Number 46, Mos Espa Pod Race 2024. I was ready for this to just completely blow me away, but the no figures really disappoints me here. It's built like the Death Star diorama, micro scale, so it's more scenery of the planet rather than like an actual gimmick here. I think that the diorama of the pod races is a really sound idea, but this scaled with no minifigures really lets me down. I won't be picking this one up come release day for May the 4th. Number 45, Droid Fighter 1999. It's pretty lackluster really, there's no minifigures included, and hindsight doesn't really help this set either because we would end up having a lot of these droid fighters in other sets in the future. That blocky design probably couldn't be avoided at the time, but we have had some droid fighters since then that look so much better than this one, and again, they feature minifigures. It's an unfair criticism to make, sure, but comparing this in 2024, it just doesn't really do anything for me. I wouldn't try to go out of my way for this one. Number 44, Naboo Starfighter Microfighter 2019. It's just a little bit higher on this list because of including that R2-D2 dome piece. It technically means that you're getting two characters included here as opposed to just the Maul or the droid, but same statement applies here. Anakin's pretty cool to get. I do already have an Anakin figure as a young kid, and once you have one of them, they all kind of do the same thing really. Number 43, Naboo Starfighter and Naboo 2012. I think it's one of the last gimmicky things that I actually really liked from LEGO. The planets line was really interesting and rather short-lived. Naboo's a really cool planet to get here, the parts all look really nice, but the pilot figure isn't anything exciting really. Number 42, Sebulba Podracer and Tatooine 2012. Putting this one a little bit higher here because Sebulba is a more interesting minifigure to get. This is also the way that I have that amazing minifigure. And while Tatooine is I think a more famous planet than Naboo, it's weaker in its design aspect, but the Podracer polybag build, it's pretty cool as well. Number 41, Sith Infiltrator 1999. A classic, but it's dated. It's very dated in comparison. It's the only Sith Infiltrator to look like it was built in Minecraft. A positive here is that they did nail enough of that design that the future models only really change up some of the smoothing of the areas, but really, it's not that appealing to look at on a display. Number 40, Darth Maul Bust 2001. It's kinda cool, but it's also pretty scary looking. I don't really have much else to say about it otherwise. It's very reminiscent of the early 2000s era just because of how blocky it is. It really takes me back to seeing the life-size Lego statues that they would have at toy stores as a kid, but I'm not interested in getting this one personally myself. Number 39, Flash Speeder 1999. It's a cool addition to the line really. Star Wars is built on small scaled items like this for world building purposes, but we would have an incredible Flash Speeder that released years later on, and it's really just a whole lot better than this original one is from the 90s. Number 38, Lightsaber Duel 1999. I love Lightsaber Duel, I really do. It's possibly the first ever LEGO set I think I ever bought, but it does repeat a few things and it doesn't offer a whole lot otherwise. It's a really cheap way to get Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul, and it is nostalgic to me. I love it still, but compared to some other releases, especially the releases of 1999, there are some better options out there. Number 37, AAT 2015. A whole lot of repeats incoming here. I think I'm nicer on this one than others, but the size does throw me off a little bit. It's a pretty simple execution, really decent minifigures. I've always liked that color scheme, but the size, she's very small to how she should be. The 1999 one is cooler. Number 36, Trade Federation MTT 2000. It's decent enough, I love the size here, but the small number of minifigures and really strange choices for the color scheme just feels off. I don't know how loved this one is, but for me, it's just barely the weakest of these kinds of models. Number 35, MTT 2014. Another one I really like actually, and I think it's a controversial opinion, but this one is really crammed in together. There's less pieces and it's only slightly cheaper than the last one. The minifigures are cool, but it is a huge downsize from the previous model. I really like the colors here though. Again, I like these 2014 to 15 remakes. I just can't really argue against the size difference though. The scale of things, it's just a bit too drastic to overall ignore. Number 34, Sith Infiltrator 2007. It's simple really, it's a better design than the other one, but still, just the one minifigure with Maul, it is disappointing. It doesn't necessarily need a whole lot of extra minifigures to go along with this, but we would end up getting some Sith Infiltrators with extra minifigures, and now that I know that that's a possibility, I can't go back. Number 33, Naboo Fighter 1999. It's blocky in its design, it would be endlessly remade later on down the track, and we have much nicer ones to look at now. Again, it's just the 1999 style. There's not much you can do there. It's definitely the least interesting design out of all of them if I had to buy one. Number 32, Sith Infiltrator 2024. I really want to love this one since it's the first time I'll actually be able to buy a Sith Infiltrator set, but I don't really love it yet. Those figures are fine, I wanted something more, just one more minifigure really. The Darth Maul has a really cool expression, but the no pupils on the eyes really annoyed me. I've complained about this in the past actually, increasingly with Ahsoka and Hera, and it's funny to see that Maul seems to be the one that annoys people the most, enough so that more people are now starting to express their issues with this style. Saw Gerrera figure for the anniversary, a really cool inclusion, those colours are way off by all accounts. A really weird one, I'll probably wait for a sale price. Number 31, Sith Infiltrator 2015. Man, I am so sorry, I am so sick of Sith Infiltrators, there's too many of these. Where this one gets it really right, Watto. Amazing inclusion, he was already released in another set anyway though, so it doesn't help it all that much. I like the shaping here a lot. I don't think this one is looked upon that fondly from the community though. I think it's pretty neat, and if I had this one I'd be pretty satisfied, but I do think that there are better designs. Number 30, Pod Racing Bucket 2000. It is one of the weirdest LEGO Star Wars sets I think to exist in the line. It appeared a few times in the aftermarket sellers here. It's notorious for the minifigure inclusions really. It does include Anakin and Jar Jar and a bunch of misc items to make different pod races. The most notable inclusion here was the remake of Aldar Beedo, quite possibly one of the worst translations from character to minifigure form I have ever seen. I am genuinely amazed that someone signed off on this. Number 29, Trade Federation Troop Carrier 2024. It's nice to see this come back, but I do think it's worse than the previous ones. Sure, it's a better build than the 1999 one, but it's also locked behind a paywall of I think 280 NZD, and it features one additional minifigure compared to that 1999 one. That's rough, man. I do really love how smooth this whole thing is, but the figures and the price, it really sours me on this. I still haven't decided if I want to go for this or not come May the 4th. Number 28, Phantom Menace Brickheads 2024. Just because I think Brickheads are kinda cool. I'll never go out of my way to buy them personally though. I think Jar Jar Binks and Amidala look incredible here, and those alone have me honestly considering buying this, at least at a sale price later on down this year. I think they're really good additions, and they really do represent one of the most important movies to me really well. Number 27, Anakin's Pod Racer 1999. The first of Annie's pod races appearing here. I am a pod racer fanboy. The pit droid figure, it's an instant classic. I'm nostalgic for that design. It's blocky as hell and it's really weird. It is the weakest pod racer only for that blocky design reason. The pod racer sets all have at least something that I think is worthwhile and worth talking about. I'll put this one here. I do really like all of the other pod racers. Number 26, Battle Droid Carrier 1999. Here you get a lot of figures to help build up that army, which is really great. The flat blocky style actually kind of works for me on this one, and seeing all these guys packed away just looks really cool. I wish LEGO would go back to jamming droids in sets like this. I'm tired of getting a handful when we used to get tons for practically nothing. And no, $280 on other Star Wars sets doesn't count. Number 25, Naboo N1 Starfighter 2007. This is a great remake because it adds to that scene. The Starfighter here looks better, still a little blocky, but it's also been smoothed out in some of the areas, and here we have a droid fighter to tag alongside with it. A really nice combo pack and really fitting for that theme. Number 24, Gungan Sub 1999. A really special design and unique to the Phantom Menace, and only remade once I think. It's blocky, same criticism I have for all of the 1999 LEGO sets, and yeah, unfair, I know, but LEGO did remake all of these in much better designs later on around the 2010s, so might as well just place them all here before really getting into all the remakes. The Stingray piece is pretty cool, and having our two Jedi and Binks here is also great, but Obi-Wan wearing his hood is a rather weird choice to make here. Number 23, Destroyer Droid 2000. It's technically advanced, it's also a little off-putting, the silhouette is there and the blocky style works really well for these guys, much better than the R2-D2 figure, but it's probably the weakest one of these other Technic figures for me. Number 22, Battle Droid 2000. I really like this Battle Droid figure. There still hasn't been a remake of this guy, and I would just love to see what a new iteration of the Battle Droid would look like. You can swing his arm up to grab the gun and fold him down just like in the movie, one of the coolest displays that I have in my collection. Number 21, Pit Droid 2000. You can tell it definitely released alongside the Phantom Menace and prequels era of Star Wars merchandising because pit droids were far more common back then than they are today. This design really works for me, and I think it's one of the best ideas when it comes to these brick-built type characters. Included with some accessories, you could also fold him up into his hiding spot, a great looking set. Number 20, Battle of Naboo 2012. Here we have a Gungan and Jar Jar Binks, as well as 10 battle droids and a better design of the troop transport. In my eyes, this would be beat a few years later, but the inclusion of the Gungans really appeals to me here, and I really love loading this thing up with all those droids as well. Number 19, Naboo Swamp 1999. I love this set personally. It's one that we haven't really seen replicated since then either. Qui-Gon Jinn and Jar Jar Binks, along with 2 battle droids on speeders in a swamp display, really should be the next idea for a diorama display on the Phantom Menace if you ask me. It's one of my favourite sets from the original release, one that I hold very nostalgically to my heart, but they are all repeat figures anyway. Number 18, Naboo Starfighter 2011. This one's a lot smoother in its design, and while we lose the additional droid ship, we do gain in some extra minifigures. Some rather special battle droids, an ugly looking droideka build, and a little cart along with a pilot. It's not perfect, but I do like the idea of getting this as a packed in set more than the other starfighters that we've looked at so far. Number 17, Droideka 2024. I haven't bought one of these brick-built characters in a while, but the 2024 R2-D2 and the Droideka have really swayed me on this theme. I really love this thing. It represents a movie I personally love, and it looks immaculate compared to the first release in the 2000s, and I could see myself picking this up at a sale price because I think it's priced the same as some of those dioramas. It just looks like there's a lot more value in this one compared to those. Number 16, Flash Speeder 2015. I love this set so much. Those smooth sections compared to the blockiness of the original, and the minifigure selection is just impeccable here. Tarpals and the Officer remain exclusive here, and the set is all the better for it. I managed to pick this up in Vietnam for a lot less than retail, surprisingly, around 2019 as well. I was really happy that I managed to find this. It's one of my favourite Phantom Menace sets. Number 15, Naboo Starfighter 2015. From what I've heard from the community, I think this is a controversial opinion. I agree that the additions are overkill here. We've got so many extra additions, it's very obvious that it just heavily increased that price point. But the additional minifigures here also really help to paint a really cool scene. It looks like an escape sequence from Naboo, and Obi-Wan as a Padawan was so underutilized during this era of LEGO Star Wars as well, so it was nice to see him again. It feels slightly different for a remake, and if this list has proved anything so far, it's that clearly when it comes to the Phantom Menace, LEGO have only 2 ideas on mind. Speaking of, number 14, Darth Maul Sith Infiltrator 2011. I think this one might be the best one. It's tough for me between this and the 2015 one, and probably the 2024 one personally. This was the first time where we were getting more than just one minifigure with Darth Maul in the set. He also included the new horns piece and a hood as well. The shaping looks pretty good. It's not all smoothed out in those areas, but still, it is a better remake than the 2007 one. Number 13, Gungan Patrol 2000. This is such a cool idea of a set, and we've never had these special molds for the Kaido ever since, and they look amazing. They just need a new paint job. That mold is still pretty impressive though. A Gungan battle pack just sounds like a perfect idea for me. It sounds like that would work really well. The chariot that they carry here, the weapons in the set, it's also interesting. I love this one so much that this spot here feels too low. Number 12, Anakin's Pod Racer 20th Anniversary 2019. Man, take me back, what a crazy wave this was. It was the only Phantom Menace based set releasing for the anniversary, so it was pretty important for me. Removing the pit droid was really disappointing, but this wave gave us traditional yellow minifigures as the special collectible anniversary figures. I thought that the set was great at the time, and it really does capture the floating design really well compared to those earlier iterations using that sand color yellow. If this included a pit droid, it would have been an absolute slam dunk here. Number 11, Jedi Defense 1, 2002. Both Jedi Defense sets are pretty much identical in my eyes. The only reason I have this one here is because I actually have this one, and it's not a building, unfortunately. I adore the fact that Obi-Wan was released in a nice, cheap, easy set because I love that original LEGO Star Wars game so much, so he and Qui-Gon Jinn are very near and dear to my heart. These droideka builds have also never been beat before, a great little set. Number 10, Jedi Defense 2, 2002. Jedi Defense 2 is here solely because it actually feels like a set. That door build is really nice and reminiscent of the original game. Again, that game means so much to me, more so than the complete Saga edition that was released later on. The level on the Trade Federation ship is very close to my heart, and these two sets put together make a really great display of that scene. Number 9, Republic Cruiser 2007. I remember seeing this when it released, and I was just floored by the size and the scale of this beast. To this day, we've not seen it since, and unfortunately that seems to be the case with every interesting prequels based set really. It was a really cool set back then, and I would love to see what a remake would look like today. Number 8, Trade Federation AAT 2000. Fantastic set. The prequels released sets all the way to the Clone Wars released AATs are still amazing. The size and the scale and the figures of these things is just unmatched compared to the really nice looking smooth but smaller ones that we get nowadays. I think it's great, it's still one of my favorites, it still holds up really well. Number 7, Duel on Naboo 2017. I have this set here because it was the first time in a while that we had these three figures all easy to get in one wave, and it was also the first time that we've ever had this sequence depicted in LEGO. This released during my time of getting back into LEGO Star Wars, and I bought this right as it was on its way out into retirement. I really love this playset, and I'm surprised we've seen nothing of this ever since. Number 6, Battle Droid Troop Carrier 2015. I think that this thing is great. We do have less Gungans this time around, tragic, but removing Jar Jar Binks means that this is a full-fledged army builder based set. I love how much of this can be removed from the vehicle, and it contains the most amount of droid figures of the entire lot. I would have bought multiples of these back in the day had I not gotten into gaming and started abandoning LEGO Star Wars. Number 5, Watto's Junkyard 2001. I personally find this set to be really underrated. Two very cool, new, interesting designs for pod races and featuring Watto for the first time as a minifigure. He's the scary no-paint mold, but still a pretty cool addition. I love the idea of workshop-based sets. I wish we had something like this today. It's really reminiscent to me of those pod racer games. This set also featured Aldo Beto, but here he was just one piece, and I think he looks great here. Again, no paint, but the molding actually does really work for me. Number 4, Anakin and Sebulba Pod Races 2011. I love it, I just completely adore it. Sebulba's Pod Racer is such a cool design to be translated into LEGO. Perfect minifigure inclusions as well with the amazing looking Sebulba and Watto figure, but for extra measure, we also have the exclusive figure of Wald and an Obi-Wan figure with his hood. I do wish we had someone that was a bit more interesting than Padawan Obi-Wan though. Anakin's mother would have been a really cool ideal inclusion. We're still waiting on a Shmi figure, but this is an amazing looking set I hope to one day have in my collection. The one thing I wished included here was some form of a side build, like a workshop or a bunch of tables or a starting line or something. Good set though nonetheless. Number 3, Mos Espa Pod Race 1999. While the builds for the pod races I think are weaker than the modern remakes than the last one, what's better than receiving a set featuring Anakin and Sebulba's pod races together? Try adding a third racer. Now we have a set that's actually offering us a real taste at pod racing. Sebulba here appears as a static piece that is quite frightening to see, and Gascano is an interesting translation, but the extra figures here are awesome. Those pit droids, you get 3 of them here, which might be the most amount of pit droids ever included in a set. The most desired idea of a remake I have right now is I want to see a remake of a Mos Espa pod race. I really want to see some more of those pod races. I think that they're really unique and interesting, and the aliens that we could get now would be great. Number 2, Gungan Sub 2012. I think everybody knows about the set by now, possibly one of the most sought after LEGO sets in the aftermarket range, so much so that people advocate for buying the knockoffs just because of how impossible it is to try and find a nice price on the set. LEGO remade the sub and they threw in an unnecessary additional figure of Queen Amidala. She's never been remade since then, and she is an incredible minifigure. Currently she's valued at around 300 NZD, which is brutal pricing and an amazing minifigure as well. I really hope we get to see her in the future in something. It's a great looking set, the colors really shine here compared to that original. I really wish I had this one out of all of them for the obvious reasons. Number 1, NTT 2007. They crushed it. They just absolutely nailed this. The only part that I love about the modern one was the inclusion of the Jedi figures, because it just helps to kind of add a little bit of a scene there, but it's not that important to have them included, honestly. The set is massive and it holds a huge roster of battle droid figures, 20 in total, which is still insane to me even in 2024. Plus there's a droideka build there as well. It's not as good as my favorite one, but still, the 20 minifigures there is crazy. The massive tray of droids all folded up looked incredible to me as a kid, and it still looks incredible to me now. And that's my list. I'll be honest, I really didn't think that there would be so many iterations of the same damn 3 sets before I started recording all of this. I only realized that as I was grabbing all the pictures. LEGO really do just think about Naboo starships, Sith infiltrators, pod racers, and battle droid carriers when it comes to the Phantom Menace, huh? Maybe someday we'll get to see something like a Theed Palace or a Jedi Council or something that's interesting, but anyway, what are your personal favorite or least favorite Phantom Menace based sets? Let me know down below. Liking this video and subscribing here does help to support the channel in making more list based videos like this one. Ka kite anō, I hope to see you all in the next video.